Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked and I am joined by my colleague James Kearney. How's it going, James?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. How are you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Not as if we've just went through this rigmarole before we started, but we may as well show the listeners here that we are polite to each other. We are here to preview the Premiership clash between Rangers and Heart of Midlothian tomorrow at Ibrox. Tomorrow will be Saturday, so the title of this podcast / YouTube video briefing on Facebook is "Can Hearts repeat their Celtic Park heroics at Ibrox?" And if I take people back to the preview of the Celtic game, I remember it was something along can Hearts surprise and end can Hearts end their Celtic Park hoodoo, and the amount of people were just like no end video, and then we did, and then ever since then it's just been an upward trajectory for this Hearts side. So I know it's probably the most confident I'm feeling as a Hearts fan going to a game at Ibrox. Am I right to feel this way, James? How are you feeling about it going ahead tomorrow?
Well, Hearts are the informed team in the Premiership at the moment. You look back over the last 10 games, no one's picked up as many points as them. So I think, there's every reason to believe the Hearts can go there and get a result. Like you say, that game back at Parkhead was it December? Because I remember as well, we did that briefing that day, and remember, even the two of us were feeling pretty negative, quite sure about it.
Yeah.
The most hopeful, to be honest.
Yeah.
But then, like you say, since then, it's the Hearts have barely missed a step. They've been absolutely fantastic. They're flying. I mean, I think the counter side of that is, of course, that I think over the same period, Rangers have been flying too. I think they've picked up 27 points they've picked up out the last 30 or something like that. Like they're just behind Hearts, I think, over the last 10 games. So they are in very good form as well. But the most important thing to remember is that aside from obviously Celtic beat them in the derby, but aside from that, no one's come closer than Hearts to taking points off Fleet Clermont's Rangers. So I think that there's definitely reasons to be positive, but then there's also reasons to be negative as well, I think. So I'll maybe bring us all back down to earth. You think of obviously there was a performance at Ibrox earlier in the season that was good. Yes, Hearts were could have very, very, very close to getting an excellent result. Could have even been a win. But then the flip side of that is the League Cup semi-final, Hampden, when, let's face it, Hearts, it was quite meekly surrendered that game, I think. Was it 3-0 down after about 60 minutes or so? Managed to pull one back towards the end. So I think that it's going to be... Fans are right to go and hope. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Like, right now, this is probably, you'd say, the best chance Hearts have had at going to Ibrox and getting something in a while. But having said that, the flip side to that is that even that game at Ibrox, I remember obviously there was a goal early on. There wasn't loads of great stuff after that from Hearts. It was kind of back to the wall, hold it out, see if we can just about see this through. So I think that it's a really difficult one to call. I think it's a difficult one to call. I think it's going to be two very good teams, but I do think that Hearts have definitely got a chance. They've got an excellent chance. But Rangers will still be the favourites, of course they will.
Yeah, of course. I think even just the fact that you're saying it's a difficult one to call, I think that shows the progression for Hearts, that they've got to this point where they're not travelling along the M8 thinking, oh, well, this is going to be another disappointing afternoon defeat. Because before I kind of talk about some of the stuff you said there, if I was to ask you, James, when was the last time Hearts beat both Celtic and Rangers away from home in the league in the same year? What would your answer be?
I'll guess 0506, but I don't know. Has it ever happened?
You need to take another 20 years off that.
Right, okay, of course, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
So a colleague of ours from the Herald, he messaged me just asking for some stats, and he messaged me one that he found was that the last time Hearts beat Celtic and Rangers away from home in the league was 85-86, he believes. I've not actually double checked if that's the case, but it does make sense because Hearts have won 3 times at Ibrox since Alan Johnston's hat-trick in 1996. So, and one of those came in the championship season, and another came when Rangers were starting the unpleasantness when the season before they were liquidated and put down to League Two. So, yeah, it's not been again, a happy hunting ground for Hearts. But the fact is that I take encouragement from the fact that under Naismith, Hearts have been a lot more competitive, especially in Glasgow. Yeah, you're right to bring up the League Cup semi-final. That was one of the most disappointing performances or afternoons this season. And I know earlier on in the campaign there was quite a few of them, but just for the circumstances, the fact it was a semi-final, the fact that Hearts didn't lay a glove on Rangers was really, really frustrating. But if you look at the 2-2 draw towards the end of last season under Naismith, then coming so close to get another result at Ibrox before losing it late on, and then the win at Celtic Park. The one thing I would say about the encouragement all three of those give, and it provides the players with evidence that, right, we can go there and do it. It gives them confidence and belief, but also the fact that Hearts are in a much better place now than they were when they went to Celtic Park, than they went to Ibrox early season. Much better place than they went to Ibrox towards the end of last season. I think we've seen over the last 3 months a team that has really, really grown in stature. A team, we've talked about before, that they can, it almost kind of like a Swiss Army knife type team, that they can play different ways. They can find results in different manners. And it was interesting, try not to give too much away from the Stephen King, when we sat down and spoke to Stephen Kingsley ahead of the game, just because embargo stuff, but he talked about like small margins, and that when you play Celtic and Rangers, you have to be, a lot of it does come down to those small margins, especially in those games. And that's, I think, just ensuring you are in the game to be able to kind of react to those small margins is important. And I think that's the case with Hearts, where, okay, even if we lose tomorrow, I think we would do it in a way that you still come away feeling relatively encouraged by it.
Well, that's it. I think that from my perspective, I think, supporters, they're not going to, no one's going to be, flinging up Naismith out banners and asking, demanding for change if Hearts don't win tomorrow, because, like I say, it's a difficult away day. But like you say, it's all about the manner of which they play. Okay, like you can kind of, you're not going to be happy about getting beat, for instance, but you can live with
understand it.
Yeah, you can live with it if there was a clear idea, a clear game plan, and do you know what, they just weren't quite good enough, or maybe just things didn't quite go their way. You can live with that. You can, like you say, that's why, for instance, the earlier game of the season at Ibrox, everyone was quite, fairly happy about it. Okay, really disappointing last few minutes, but for large spells of the game, it's fine. And then you contrast that with the League Cup semi, where that's why that one was such a frustration. It's because there wasn't, the Hearts didn't really seem to have a way of actually winning that game. So I think that, I expect that it'll be quite a cautious team that Naismith will go for, in that I think we'll see the back three, for instance. I think that's sticking.
Yeah,
I know there's been a lot of stuff recently and people want to see it, but it is Ibrox away, and for all the strengths of the back four and being a bit more attacking. Let's face it, this is a game where you do need to be first and foremost focused on just keeping the ball out of the net. The longer you do that, the more you're in the game, and then you can see what happens from there. I think we'll probably see the back three, but then, as you say, well, Naismith is not averse to making changes during the game. If Hearts do need a goal, if they do fall behind, if they do start chasing the game, Naismith's are showing that he's not afraid to make those calls, make those decisions, and change things in order to try and regain that impetus.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's important, that going to Ibrox, where if you're first, having the ability to change and still make positive changes and not weaken the side, I think that's always massive, going, especially even more so going and playing Rangers and Celtic. So you mentioned the formation there. I wrote my predicted lineup without looking at yours, and it turns out we've predicted the same lineup, and I think we've
That's not happened very often.
No,
not as often as you would think. Yeah,
and it's and I think we've probably gone along the same thought. Is I think Hearts will want to go to, and Naismith will want to go to Ibrox and be solid, but he wants to go there and control periods of the game. He doesn't want to go there and do what teams do to Hearts this season and just sit with 10 men behind the ball, defend deep, and then counter-attack. He wants to be able to take pressure off, control, and that allows you to kind of frustrate Rangers fans, because I don't think they'll want to see their team not have a lot of periods of possession where it's opposition controlling the match. But I think that's what Naismith and Hearts will want to do. I think they've got the players to do it, but I think you give yourself a better chance to do so in the back three, which we have seen allows Hearts to provide to gain more control of the ball, and that's why I think we'll see Rowles, Kingsley and Kent there. And I understand why fans will want, a lot of fans will probably put Cammy Devlin in their starting 11, which is completely understandable because Hearts won't have as much of the ball as they usually do. So you want someone to go about the pitch, disrupt the opposition and win the ball back. But again, with the view of gaining some control and possession in the middle of the pitch, I think you'll go with the three who you probably trust to do that in Callum Nieuwenhof, Benny Meningame, who is fit again, and George Grant.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the three times that Hearts have played Rangers this season, that's been the midfield. That's been the lineup. It's been a 3-5-2. It's been like the usual back three, and that midfield where you've got Benny as the six sitting, and then Nieuwenhof slightly ahead and Grant slightly ahead of him. I think it makes a lot of sense, to be honest. I would quite like to see Cammy Devlin for this kind of game, just because I'm a big Cammy Devlin fan. I've not seen him for a while properly, and good. And again, like you say, I think he is well suited to this one. But there is that thing of it most likely be Grant. You'd imagine it would have to come out, and when you take that out, all of a sudden, like that's then asking an awful lot of like sort of Devlin and Nieuwenhof to then try and create and help, kind of link, get forward and help out the attackers. So I do think that. I think you're right. I think it'll be that midfield again. I think that was quite similar to the team as well that started at Celtic Park. Obviously, Aidan Denham was in for that game as well. But I think this seems to be the midfield that Naismith trusts for these kind of really difficult away games. The ones where you don't have a lot of the ball, and when you do have it, you need to use it carefully. You can't be careless. So, for instance, I think that's why at right wing back, for instance, I think we'll see Atkinson come in for Lembikisa, just because Lembikisa, while he's been there's certainly been some things he's looked really good, and there's been some games he's looked excellent, some games where he's looked a bit ropey. But the one thing that's kind of been consistent across the games he has played has been the fact that he doesn't take particularly good care of the ball. Like, sometimes he takes risks, and sometimes that's fine. If you're playing a game where you've got lots of the ball and you're trying to break an opponent down, you need someone to take risks, and he's good at it because he can go both. He can go either inside or outside. He can use both feet. That's great. But in a game like this, at Ibrox, where a big part of the game is going to be about trying to just keep, have those little moments where you keep the ball, try and frustrate that crowd, because let's not forget, this will be most likely be a pretty antsy Rangers crowd, given the fact that they're top of the league for the first time in donkeys. They're actually in a position where if they then slip up, they could, the consequences are drastic. So I think the fans are very aware of that. So I think this is a game where if Hearts can keep the ball for spells, try and frustrate the Rangers, it could easily be the sort of game where the fans can turn, and obviously an early goal or just any goal for Hearts can just really exacerbate that effect. So I think that'll definitely be part of it. And so I think you need a midfield that's going to keep the ball, and that's what those three players do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you make a really good point about Rangers and their position at the top of the table. This is really the first time there's a proper title race since some pleasantness that I mentioned all those years ago. Because even the season that they won the league, it was played in front of no crowd, so they didn't have that pressure that comes with playing in front of Ibrox and that expectation and demand.
Yep.
But also, Celtic were miles off it, and towards the end there wasn't much of a title race. Now you go where it's going to be kind of back and forth, and it's positive pressure for once for Rangers that they can, if they win on Saturday, then they go 5 points ahead, and that puts a lot more pressure on Celtic, who play this Sunday. But with that, there's it can be positive pressure, but it's still pressure nonetheless, and that's, like you said, that's what the fans, the home crowd will be feeling. That it's important to try and ensure that they don't get G'd up really early on, and because I feel that Ibrox, when Rangers are on top form and they get a decent lead, then it becomes a really difficult environment to play in, because it becomes rowdy and raucous, and positively for the home team, but makes it more difficult for the away side. So yeah, that's vitally important. Again, Hearts have scored early, I think the last both of the last games at Ibrox, which would be ideal again if that can happen, and then just kind of keeping them at bay, maybe even trying to build on it. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing to note.
Because just to quickly jump in there, that was the really big thing about the Celtic game, for instance. It's okay, Hearts obviously took the lead early on, and yes, okay, the second goal, it was a free kick, so it's kind of out of nothing to an extent. But it wasn't as if Hearts went 1-0 up and they just sat back and went, "Oh right, okay, this is great. Let's just see what we can do now." Whereas I think if you think back to the 2-1 defeat at Ibrox, I think particularly in the second half there probably was a bit of that going on. I think particularly the last half hour or so. So again, I think it's just maybe another lesson that Naismith's learned, and then hopefully Hearts take the lead early tomorrow, and hopefully he shows once again that he's learned from that mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to Naismith earlier in the season, when I asked him about stuff that he's learned, or there's decisions he maybe go back and change, and he did mention the Ibrox game, and he thought that he changed at half time and it didn't work. So that's something he's wary of, and I'm sure he'll be. Again, we've seen already this season, if he's made a mistake, he tends to learn from it and doesn't make it again. So yeah, definitely, hopefully. I definitely believe he'll take that on. In attack, we've also got Shankland. We both went for Vargas in attack. What was your thinking behind that? Because I can also see a scenario where Forrest plays as well instead of Vargas.
That's probably the hardest position I found when trying to come up with the correct lineup, just because I think if Shankland obviously has to start, that's a given. But then you've got two very good players who are in very good form at the moment, in Forrest and Vargas, but there's only room for one. My thinking was just purely that I think Vargas is best suited through the centre. I think that's where we've seen, recently when he's been scoring goals, a lot of them have come from when he's playing through the centre. I think him and Shankland's relationship's developing quite nicely. Whereas Forrest, for all his qualities, his best performances do come at left wing. I think that's been one of the consistent factors this season. So I think that while Forrest has done well in these kind of games before, again, Forrest started at Parkhead, wasn't it?
In attack.
But I just think that right now, on current form, Vargas probably offers you more of a goal threat and a bit more end product. But then if it were to be Forrest, for instance, I think that he probably, again, similar to George Grant earlier, he takes care of the ball, he uses it well, he doesn't lose it quite as often. I think Vargas probably takes more risks, but I do think right now in current form it has to be Vargas. He's finally finding his feet, he's scoring goals, and in that central role he's really thriving.
So I've talked about us having the same lineup. I actually might change it. I reckon he might go for Forrest, just because how well Forrest and Shankland played at Celtic Park. And just with Forrest, reliable, does follows instruction really well. But I just think, not that Vargas doesn't, but I just think Vargas, you might think, similar to like Devlin, if you get into a certain game situation, a positive addition off the bench. And I just think with his pace, when the game opens up a wee bit, that he might get, Naismith might see it, that he gets more opportunity later on in the game, potentially. Obviously, it depends how the game progresses. So yeah, I think maybe we'll just go for Forrest, with the view that he has been a very consistent player, but also what Vargas can bring off the bench. But again, it's a good position to be in. Now, just going to get jump to some of the comments. So get your prediction later on, and it's also like George Ego says, just don't lose it, and Chris Alexander says, take a point, move on, and look for 6 over the next 2 games. See if Hearts got 7 points from the next 3 games. So Ibrox tomorrow, Hibs on Wednesday, and then Celtic a week on Sunday. I'll be getting Scotland's coefficient to be doing a Champions League breakdown for Europe. I think 7 points in the next 3 games would be incredible.
So let me ask you this then, as a fan, right? How would you accept a win at Ibrox and a win over Celtic? So you get 6 points, and you get to win both those games if it meant losing the derby.
Nah, no chance.
Okay, good. Just check it.
No, that's obviously it's no, it's difficult. Difficult to accept that. Difficult to accept a defeat to Hibs, especially at Tynecastle.
Aye.
But I think it's one of those where you talked about it earlier on, was that Hearts have got themselves in a really good position and a really good place kind of mentally, both within the fans and the team, that if they do lose at Rangers, I just don't think it would have a massive negative impact. You'd trust the team to bounce back against Hibs, but at the same time, even just going to Ibrox and getting a draw, it just keeps that momentum building, and it just reaffirms the belief that this team is going places. And I think not just within the fans, which is important, but within the dressing room as well. And I just feel it's a pity that it's not Celtic this Sunday rather than next Sunday, because I think they're in a position where they could be, Hearts can give them a real bloody nose at Tynecastle, and because a lot can change across the space of a week. But it's a really
the opposite. I think Celtic's problems are bigger. They're not going to be waving a wand. They're not going to be flying this time next week. Like, no, they're going to be in a simpler position. They'll be they'll be struggling. Like, no, all right. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I think, but
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I take the point. Yeah, you'd rather play the one that looks kind of a little bit on the ropes, if rather than the one that's been in. I mean, let's say Sunderland, they have been incredibly consistent. Yeah. Rangers, they've been they've looked really solid. They're getting wins. A lot of clean sheets. The one thing, though, I think is another encouraging thing from a Hearts perspective is the fact that Todd Cantwell's going to miss this game, because I was speaking to a pal of mine, a Rangers fan, the other day, and he was talking about how Cantwell's really come onto a game over the last 4 or 5 matches, how he's been, really been that kind of creative fulcrum right in the middle, that kind of driving force for them. And so he will be a big loss, and they're going to have to find a way around that. And you think as well of, I'm sure, obviously Seema's still out as well, and he's given Hearts a hard time at times this season as well. So I think that, obviously it's not going to see any player getting injured, opposition or your own, but it's certainly just another wee thing that goes in Hearts' favour, perhaps. So it's just another wee, another hurdle for them to try and overcome, another wee bit that sows a bit of doubt, perhaps, or a little, something that's not quite gone according to plan for them. And those are the wee things you need to try and take advantage of if you're going to win these kinds of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And he just adds to their injury list, which has Seema again, who's been really, really good this season. Matondo, who is absolutely rapid, and again he can take advantage of any space in behind, and Danilo as well. So there's a lot of pressure on Dessers. He's been scoring goals, but he's been missing a hell of a lot of chances as well at the same time. It's going into a really exciting week, and I just received a message from a pal of mine, and he was talking about our trip through to Celtic Park, where we were very, very negative about the future of Hearts, and then it completely changed that afternoon. So
are you saying we should be more negative?
That's exactly what he's asking. He's asking that we should be just being really, really down on Hearts, and just in the hope that we would go to Ibrox and get a win.
Honest, is this game must win then for Naismith? Has he got to win? Is it time to go? Give him the game. Is there any point?
I would say maybe not must win this one. Must not lose, and then must win is against Hibs.
Always is.
What is your, so in terms of prediction, I've seen that Linda has said on Facebook that Hearts win 3-0. I love that optimism. What is your prediction, James?
I'll be honest. I'll be doom and gloom. Your pal will be happy. I'll go for a Rangers win, but narrow. So I think it'll be something like 2-1 or something like that. Like one goal win, but probably to them.
I'm going to say I reckon we've got a point in us, so I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I suppose there's not much else to say around the match. All I would say is I would point to our interview with Kenneth Vargas that went up on Hearts Standard this afternoon. He talks about his future at Hearts. He really wants to stay. He talks about how he is adjusting to life in Edinburgh, away from his family, away from his son. He's 21 years old, and he's moved 5,000 miles across the world to join Hearts, and his son's back home. He talks about his bond with Callum Neuenhoff, how he's integrated into the squad, a load of different things. But I had the chance to. It wasn't me that did the interview because my Spanish is not very good. So it was a colleague of ours who does some work for us, who is fluent in Spanish. He sat down with Kenneth Vargas, and it was recorded on video. So Hearts could also use it for the YouTube channel, and that we got the exclusive interview. We got the interview, which was great, and I got to speak to him a wee bit before and after. His English was actually pretty good. When I was speaking slowly, he could understand. Asked him about some of his colleagues. That wasn't. You mentioned a couple from the West Coast. He said he struggles to understand their accent, but he's switched on, really confident, and it was clear that he really enjoys Edinburgh. So, and the fact that he really wants to stay, which is exciting.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic read. Thoroughly urge fans to go and read it because it's really good stuff, and it's the very first thing he's done since he's been here over the last 6 months or so. And of course, you can look at it on our lovely shiny new app as well.
Yeah, of course, and you can download that. I think it's a really good way to view our content. And with Vargas, I think you get the piece kind of shines a light on just him as a person, which is really cool. When we met him, he was doing a sponsors event at Tynecastle. He was playing FIFA or EAFC or whatever it's called. Now against a lot of young Hearts fans, and he was was thrashing them. He beat one lad with Kilmarnock 6-1 and scored a hat trick with Kevin Van Veen. So he's FIFA daft. The only other thing I would say is Danielle mentioned that talked about the YouTube channels going 618 subs. All I would ask is or ask a request, if anyone who's not subscribed, please do so, and you can be notified of any videos we do. And the more support you give us, the more the channel will be able to grow, and the more we will be able to grow. So yeah, thanks very much.
It makes a really big difference on our end. It's one of those things where if I'm using YouTube, I'll be honest, I rarely subscribe to things and all that kind of stuff, but it does. Since we've started doing this, now I started because I understand it might not seem like a big thing for you guys, but it makes a huge difference for us. It's a massive help.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you've got YouTube, then please do subscribe. But other than that, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you very much, everyone, for your continued support. And hopefully we'll be back either post-match tomorrow or Monday discussing another Heart of Midlothian win. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, indeed.